I didn't think the first real test of my engagement would come from a seating chart. Not from finances, not from the stress of planning, not even from the tiny fights Kevin and I sometimes had about flowers versus candles. It came from Rachel, my future sister-in-law, standing in my living room like she owned the air in it, asking questions that didn't sound like curiosity. They sounded like an interrogation. "Who's officiating?" she asked, eyes sharp. "A friend," I said carefully, keeping my voice even. "We wrote our own vows. It'll be simple, under 30 minutes. Her mouth tightened. "So, no priest." "No," I repeated. "Neither Kevin nor I are religious." That's when her face changed. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, like she'd been waiting for me to say it so she could finally pull out the real weapon. "That's going to be a problem," she said, leaning back like a judge settling into a verdict. "For family." I blinked. "For who?" She didn't answer immediately. She let the silence sit between us, heavy and deliberate, like she wanted me to feel guilty before she even explained why. "Grandma," she said finally. "She's Catholic, you know that." I did know Kevin's grandmother was Catholic. I also knew she was sweet, gentle, and had hugged me when we got engaged like I already belonged. She had never once used religion to control anyone in the room. So when Rachel said, "She'll be hurt," what I heard underneath was, "I'll make her hurt." I tried to stay polite, tried to keep myself from reacting the way my stomach wanted to, which was to slam the door and lock it. "We can talk to her," I said. "If Grandma has concerns, she can tell Kevin and me directly." Rachel shook her head, almost pitying. "She's too polite. She won't. But she'll sit there, watching her grandson get married with no God in it, and Kevin will be embarrassed for the rest of his life." My heart started thudding in my ears. Not because I was scared of Rachel, because I suddenly realized this wasn't about tradition. This was about ownership. Rachel didn't want a blessing. She wanted control. And when she couldn't control the ceremony, she decided she'd control the story. And that story, about me being selfish, controlling, and pulling Kevin away, was the one she would try to feed to his family until it sounded like truth. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to go. I'm 26. I work as a graphic designer, branding, packaging, campaign visuals, the kind of work where people assume you play with colors all day, even though half my job is deadlines, client revisions, and trying to make someone's vague idea sound like a real plan. Kevin is 29. He's the steady kind of man. Not loud, not flashy. He's the one who remembers to keep extra batteries in the drawer and checks the weather before a road trip. When he loves you, you feel it in the small ways. Your coffee exactly how you like it, your phone charged because he noticed it was low, your hand held at the right moment without you asking. We met 3 years ago at a friend's birthday dinner, one of those crowded restaurant tables where everyone is half shouting over music, passing plates, laughing too hard. I remember Kevin sitting across from me, listening more than talking, and when I made a joke about how I was married to my laptop, he smiled like he understood what it meant to be committed to something invisible. He asked for my number at the end of the night, not in a smooth way, more like he'd practiced the words in his head and didn't want to lose courage. "Can I text you sometime?" he said. I said yes, and when he walked away, I had that strange, rare feeling, like something good had just slipped quietly into my life without making noise about it. Dating Kevin was easy in the beginning. He didn't rush me. He didn't play games. When he said, "I'll call you tonight," he called. When he promised he'd be there at 7, he showed up at 6:58 with that slightly apologetic look, like he hated being late even by accident. The first time he talked about his family, his voice softened. "Mom and Dad are solid," he told me. "They've been married 35 years. They're the kind of couple who still sits close on the couch." He had 2 siblings, Dylan, 24, the younger brother with the golden retriever energy, friendly, warm, the kind of person who can talk to anyone in line at a grocery store, and Rachel, 32, the older sister, successful, corporate finance, sharp edges under polished clothes. Kevin warned me gently before the first dinner at his parents' house. "Rachel can be intense," he said, like he was trying to use the nicest word possible for something he didn't want to admit out loud. "But she's protective. Give her time." I remember being nervous that night, standing in front of the mirror at my apartment, changing outfits twice. Not because I needed to impress Kevin, he already saw me, but because meeting someone's family always feels like walking into a room where the air belongs to them, and you have to earn the right to breathe comfortably. Kevin's parents were exactly what he said: warm, welcoming, the type to ask real questions and actually listen to the answers. His mom hugged me like she meant it. His dad shook my hand with that gentle firmness that makes you feel respected instead of evaluated. Dylan grinned and said, "Finally. Kevin's been talking about you so much, I feel like I already know you." And then there was Rachel. Rachel didn't hug me. She didn't even smile properly. She did that thing where her lips move, but her eyes don't, like she's performing politeness for the room. During dinner, she barely spoke to me, except when she interrupted. If I started to answer a question, she cut in with a story about Kevin as a kid. If I tried to join a conversation, she redirected it back to her job, her schedule, her stress, her world. It wasn't loud hostility, it was subtler than that, like being erased in real time while everyone pretends you're still visible. Afterward, in the car, Kevin's jaw was tight. "I saw it," he said, before I could even speak. "I'm sorry, she's adjusting." I wanted to believe him. I did. Over the next year, Rachel kept her distance in a way that was almost strategic. She didn't call me. She didn't text me. If she needed something from Kevin, she contacted Kevin. If she wanted to make a point about me, she made it in front of Kevin. Little comments, always with a smile that let her pretend she was joking. "Oh, graphic design," she said once, lifting her brows like she was impressed by a child's drawing. "That must be nice. Such a relaxed schedule." I remember my fingers tightening around my glass, because my schedule wasn't relaxed. It was just different from hers. But she didn't care about facts. She cared about hierarchy, and in her mind, her job was a ladder she could stand on while looking down. When Kevin and I moved in together, Rachel called him multiple times that first week. "Are you sure?" she asked him, more than once, according to Kevin, because he didn't want to make me feel worse by repeating it. She never asked if I was sure. She never asked if I felt ready. She acted like Kevin was being recruited into a decision he didn't understand, like I was pulling him into something dangerous. Then came the moment that made it impossible for me to call it just adjusting. Kevin's parents' 35th anniversary dinner. Rachel organized it, an expensive restaurant, a family celebration. She sent a group text to coordinate reservations, except she accidentally left me off the message. Kevin only found out 2 days before, when his mom asked, casually, "What time is your reservation, sweetheart?" I still remember Kevin's face when he looked at his phone. Confused, then angry, then that familiar discomfort he got whenever Rachel did something he didn't want to confront. Rachel apologized, of course. "It was an honest mistake," she said. "I must have missed your number." But I noticed something Rachel didn't expect me to notice. Dylan's girlfriend of only 6 months had been included. So it wasn't that Rachel couldn't remember new people. It was that she could remember them when she wanted to. Kevin proposed 6 months ago. It was perfect. Quiet, personal, the kind of moment where the world narrows down to one person kneeling in front of you like you're the most important thing he's ever chosen. We had a small celebration dinner with both our families. Rachel arrived late, stayed on her phone, barely looked at my ring when Kevin's mom asked to see it. Then she walked outside to take a call for 20 minutes and left right after dessert arrived. And Kevin, sweet Kevin, still tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. "She's stressed," he said. But I had started to understand something about Rachel. Stress didn't make her cold. Stress just made her honest. And when wedding planning began, I didn't realize I was stepping into the one arena Rachel believed belonged to her, the place where Kevin's future gets decided. Wedding planning, at first, felt like a relief. Kevin and I were aligned on almost everything, something that made me quietly proud of us. We didn't want a massive event. No cathedral ceilings, no 200-person guest list filled with people we barely knew. We chose a vineyard about an hour outside the city, green, open, light filtering through rows of grapevines like the place itself was breathing. A garden ceremony. Around 100 guests, enough to feel full without feeling performative. Both sets of parents offered to help financially, which we accepted gratefully, but carefully. Kevin and I were clear that accepting help didn't mean handing over decisions. Everyone seemed to respect that. Everyone except Rachel. The first shift came when we announced the wedding party. I asked my 2 closest friends and Kevin's cousin to be bridesmaids. Kevin chose Dylan and 2 college friends as groomsmen. Small, balanced, intentional. Rachel was not included. That decision wasn't mine, it was Kevin's. He told me that clearly, like he wanted to protect me from being blamed for it later. "I don't want things to be awkward," he said, "and right now, with how she's been treating you, it would be." He planned to talk to her privately, but Rachel beat him to it. She called him first. Kevin told me later she asked calmly at first, almost sweetly, So, she said, I noticed I'm not in the wedding party. Kevin explained his reasoning, keeping it simple, choosing people he was closest to right now. There was a pause, then Rachel said, I understand. And for a moment, Kevin thought that was it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Rachel showed up at our apartment unannounced. Kevin was out running errands. I was at my desk, halfway through a design mock-up, when the knock came, sharp, impatient. I opened the door and found Rachel standing there, perfectly put together, like she'd planned this moment. I was in the area, she said, already stepping inside before I could respond. I told myself this could be good. Maybe she finally wanted to talk. Maybe this was her version of extending an olive branch. Instead, she turned my living room into a checkpoint. Who was invited? What the menu was? What colors we'd chosen? Had we finalized the music? I answered politely, carefully, trying not to give her anything she could twist. Then she asked about the ceremony. I explained secular, a friend officiating, our own vows. That was when her tone changed. No religious elements at all, she asked. No, I said. We wanted to reflect who we are. That's when she leaned back and said, that's going to be a problem. She invoked Kevin's grandmother like a shield, speaking for her without ever letting her speak herself. I tried to be reasonable. If Grandma has concerns, she can talk to us directly. Rachel shook her head. She won't. She's too polite, but she'll be hurt. Then she suggested compromises. A blessing. A priest present. A short prayer. I told her we'd think about it, not because I planned to change anything, but because I needed the conversation to end without exploding. She didn't let it. She kept pushing, framing it as a small thing, as something that would mean so much to the family. When I reminded her that this was our wedding, she stood up abruptly. You're being selfish, she said, voice tight. Kevin is going to be embarrassed when his grandmother sits through a ceremony with no God in it. That's when Kevin walked in. Rachel's posture shifted instantly. Her voice softened. She smiled like she'd just been discussing table linens with me. She left shortly after. Kevin knew something was wrong the second the door closed. I told him everything. He was furious, but controlled. He called Rachel that evening and told her to back off. She apologized again, said she was just trying to help. Then came the barbecue at his parents' house 3 weeks later. Rachel pulled me aside while people were eating. I've been thinking, she said. I came on too strong before. I waited hopeful. Then she brought up the guest list. She said she'd heard I was inviting too many friends, that my side was bigger, that Kevin's family might feel unimportant. I told her Kevin had approved the list. She smiled thinly. He probably just doesn't want to cause problems. That's when something in me went quiet. I walked away without arguing, without defending myself. Kevin noticed immediately. When I told him later, he didn't hesitate. He called Rachel on the spot. Their argument spilled out of the speaker, her voice rising, accusing him of changing, of never standing up to me. Kevin told her she was out of line and hung up. The next day, his parents called us for dinner. When we arrived, Rachel was already there. And that was the night she finally said it out loud, what she'd been implying all along. She told the family I was making all the decisions. She pointed to the secular ceremony, the guest list. Kevin corrected her, firmly, clearly. His parents believed him. But Rachel's eyes told me something different. This wasn't about details anymore. This was about losing control. And she wasn't done yet. 2 months later, Rachel texted me directly for the first time. I remember staring at my phone when her name appeared, my thumb hovering like the screen might burn me. Can we meet for coffee? I think we should talk. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, still hopeful, still trying to be the bigger person, thought maybe this was finally the conversation that would clear the air. So I said yes. We met at a cafe near her office, all glass and chrome and people in business casual tapping away on laptops. Rachel arrived exactly on time. She ordered black coffee, no small talk. She folded her hands and said, I've been doing some thinking about why I reacted the way I did. That sentence alone made my chest loosen a little. She talked about family expectations, about how she had always pictured Kevin getting married in a church, the way their grandparents did, the way their parents did. Traditions matter, she said, even if you're not religious. I reminded her, calmly, that Kevin and I had made these decisions together. She nodded. I know. But by choosing a completely secular wedding, you're telling the family their traditions mean nothing to you. That was the first time I felt something snap. I asked her directly if Kevin's parents had said any of this. She hesitated, then admitted they hadn't. They're too polite, she said, but I know they're disappointed. Then she made her real request. She wanted the ceremony moved to a church, or at least a chapel. Same reception, same vineyard, but the ceremony had to look right. I told her no, not gently, not apologetically, just no. She pushed harder, said we could change venues if we really cared about family. I stood up, heart pounding, and ended the conversation. I texted Kevin immediately. He didn't hesitate this time. He called Rachel and told her she was done being involved in the wedding. If she brought it up again, she wouldn't be invited at all. She cried, accused him of choosing me over his own sister. And for the first time, Kevin said the words out loud. I'm choosing my future wife, the life I'm building. That should have been the end. It wasn't. A week later, Rachel sent me a long message saying she'd spoken to several family members who agreed a secular ceremony was inappropriate. She named Kevin's aunt, 2 cousins. She suggested a separate religious blessing for those who felt uncomfortable. Kevin called his aunt immediately. Confused, shocked. I never said that, she told him. Rachel asked my opinion in general. I said I personally prefer church weddings, but I'd never judge yours. The cousins said the same thing. Rachel had taken casual comments and twisted them into opposition. That was the moment Kevin uninvited her from the wedding. She blamed me over and over. His parents supported us. Dylan supported us. Rachel went silent. Then she crossed a line neither of us saw coming. She called my mother, told her Kevin was changing, that I was isolating him, that maybe my mom should talk to me. My mom shut it down, but when she told me about the call, I felt physically sick. That was the moment I understood. Rachel wasn't trying to protect Kevin. She was trying to rewrite reality, and she was willing to drag anyone into it if it gave her leverage. After Rachel called my mother, something inside me shifted, not loudly, not dramatically. It was quieter than that. It was the sound of certainty settling in. Kevin came home that night with his shoulders tight, jaw clenched, in a way I'd only seen a few times before. He didn't even take his shoes off before asking, "Did your mom tell you?" I nodded. We sat on the couch without turning on any lights, the apartment dim except for the street lamp glow cutting through the window. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. She had no right, he said, voice low. None. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I felt this strange pull inward, like my body was protecting itself by going still. I keep wondering if I could have handled things differently, I admitted, if I should have shut it down earlier or tried harder to make her feel included. Kevin turned toward me immediately. No, he said firmly, this is not on you. But doubt is a stubborn thing. It doesn't care about logic. It whispers. Had I been too rigid about the ceremony? Too quick to walk away from that cafe conversation? Too confident that Kevin and I being aligned was enough? I replayed moments over and over. The first dinner, the anniversary text I wasn't included in, the way Rachel always spoke around me instead of to me. Kevin reached for my hand. His palm was warm, steady. She's been doing this my whole life, he said quietly. Not like this, but controlling the narrative, deciding what things mean for everyone else. That was the first time he admitted it out loud. We talked for hours that night, not arguing, not spiraling, just unpacking. Kevin told me about times Rachel had spoken for him growing up, how she'd step in with teachers, with relatives, even with his parents sometimes, framing things like she knew what was best. She's always struggled when Dylan and I became more independent, he said. But this crossed into something else. Still, the guilt lingered. When Kevin's parents called the next day, I braced myself. I expected awkwardness, maybe even subtle pressure to smooth things over. Instead, his mom said, I'm so sorry we didn't shut this down sooner. I had to swallow hard before I could answer. She told us Rachel had always had trouble letting go, but contacting my parents was unacceptable. His dad was even more direct. She's acting like Kevin is something she can lose ownership of, he said. That's not healthy. Hearing that didn't erase the pain, but it grounded me. Rachel sent message after message to Kevin. Accusations, guilt, warnings that he'd regret this. He didn't respond. At night, though, I could feel the weight on him. He slept restlessly. He stared at nothing sometimes, like he was mourning a version of his sister he wished still existed. I asked him once softly, "Are you okay?" He hesitated, then said, "I'm angry and sad and relieved, all at once." That's when I realized this wasn't just my conflict to survive. This was his loss too, and we were about to find out how far Rachel was willing to go now that she no longer had access to us. The silence after Rachel was uninvited didn't feel peaceful. It felt charged, like the quiet right before a storm rolls in and the air presses down on your lungs. For about a week, nothing happened. No texts, no calls, no dramatic social media posts, at least none that were obvious. Kevin's parents told us Rachel was upset, but hoped she'd calm down. Dylan mentioned she'd posted vague things about family loyalty and being forgotten, but said it was probably best to ignore it. So we did. We kept planning, finalized the catering, confirmed the florist, sent out invitations. We didn't send one to Rachel. That decision, simple on paper, set off the next wave. A few extended family members reached out, carefully. Hey, just checking, was Rachel's invitation delayed? Kevin handled every message himself, calm, consistent, honest. He explained there had been ongoing issues, boundaries crossed, and that for now, Rachel would not be attending. Most people were understanding. A few said they hoped we'd reconcile before the wedding. Kevin thanked them and said he hoped for peace too, but not at the cost of respect. Then Rachel escalated sideways. She contacted my parents. Again, this time she framed it as concern. She told my mom she was worried Kevin was isolating himself, that he had changed so much and cut her off suddenly, that maybe I was making decisions for both of us. My mom listened, politely at first. But then Rachel said something that made the story fall apart. She claimed Kevin had originally wanted a church wedding, and that I had talked him out of it. My mom shut it down immediately. She knew that wasn't true. Kevin and I had discussed our plans openly with both families early on. There was no secret conversion, no coercion. My mom told Rachel she was overstepping. Then she called me. I could hear the concern in her voice, but also the disbelief. She sounded convincing at first, my mom said, but then it didn't add up. When Kevin found out, I watched anger harden into something colder. He called Rachel. She didn't answer. He left a voicemail, voice shaking with controlled fury, telling her contacting my family was completely unacceptable and had to stop. Rachel texted back that she was just trying to help and that someone needed to make sure I wasn't making a mistake. That was the moment Kevin's mother stepped in, hard. She called Rachel and had what she later described as a long, ugly conversation. Rachel defended herself, said Kevin wouldn't listen, said she felt forced to act. His mom told her, clearly, that Kevin was an adult, making his own choices, and Rachel's concerns were neither necessary nor valid. Things went quiet again. 2 weeks, just enough time for us to breathe. Then Kevin's grandmother called. She rarely called. When she did, it mattered. Rachel had driven 3 hours to see her. She'd told her that Kevin and I were having problems, that the wedding might not even happen, that Kevin was pulling away from his family. His grandmother listened, then called Kevin. I thought you should know, she said gently, because what she told me didn't match what your parents said. She told him Rachel seemed emotional, convinced she was losing her brothers. Then she said something that stayed with Kevin. I love Rachel, she said, but she's behaving badly. You need to do what's right for you. After that call, Kevin decided he needed to confront her in person. He asked if I wanted to come. I didn't. This is yours, I told him, not mine. He drove to her apartment that weekend. When he came home, his face looked older, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. She said she wants things to go back to how they were before you, he told me quietly. Before me. Not before the wedding planning. Not before the conflict. Before me. That's when Kevin finally saw it clearly. This had never been about religion, or tradition, or even the wedding. It was about Rachel losing her place at the center of his life and blaming me for it. And somehow, even knowing that, didn't make it hurt any less. Because the closer the wedding got, the more desperate Rachel became. And the storm still hadn't broken. The closer the wedding got, the heavier everything felt. 5 weeks out. That number sat in my chest like a weight. Every time someone asked, "Are you excited?" I smiled automatically, but inside I felt like I was bracing for impact. Rachel hadn't contacted us directly since Kevin confronted her. That should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like waiting in a hallway after a door slams, knowing something is still happening on the other side. Then Dylan called. Kevin answered on speaker while I was folding laundry, trying to keep life normal. Rachel's been messaging some of your friends, Dylan said, voice tense. The room went quiet. Friends from Kevin's college years, people Rachel barely knew. She'd told them she was worried about Kevin, that he'd cut her off completely, that she was concerned about his well-being. She asked them if they'd noticed changes in him, if I was isolating him. 3 of them forwarded the messages to Kevin immediately. I thought you should see this, one wrote. This feels off. I watched Kevin read the screenshots. His hands didn't shake, his face didn't change, but I could feel something breaking quietly inside him. He called his mom right away. She was horrified. This is not concern, she said. This is manipulation. She called Rachel that night and told her, clearly, to stop contacting anyone in Kevin's life. Rachel cried, said she didn't know what else to do, said everyone was against her. Kevin's mom said something that stuck with me. No one is against you. but your behavior is pushing people away." The call ended with Rachel saying she needed time to think. 2 days later, Kevin got an email. It was long, painfully long. Rachel laid out her entire perspective, how she'd only ever wanted what was best for Kevin, how she hadn't meant to cause harm, how she felt like she was losing her best friend. She admitted, finally, that she'd never given me a fair chance, that she'd been looking for reasons not to like me. She said she'd started seeing a counselor. Kevin read the email out loud to me that night. When he finished, the room felt hollow. "It sounds real," he said slowly, "but I don't know if I can trust it." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me remembered every sleepless night, every twisted message, every line she'd crossed without apology until consequences appeared. Then came the week before the wedding. Rachel drove out to Kevin's grandmother again, this time with printed articles, highlighted, about family dynamics, about siblings being excluded, about how marriages could fracture families. Kevin's grandmother told him everything. "She genuinely believes this wedding will destroy your family," she said, "but that doesn't make her right." 3 days before the wedding, our venue coordinator called. Someone claiming to be Kevin's sister had asked for details about the ceremony timeline. They hadn't given anything out, but they wanted us to know. Kevin didn't say much after that call. He just stared at the wall and said, "We need security." The night before the wedding, Rachel showed up at Kevin's parents' house, uninvited, during a dinner with out-of-town family. She pushed past his father, demanded 5 minutes alone with Kevin. Kevin said no. His mother escorted her out while she protested that this proved everything she'd been saying. The room went silent. I stood there, heart racing, realizing this wasn't just drama anymore. This was obsession. That night, Kevin barely spoke. When we got home, he admitted quietly, "I'm scared she'll try something tomorrow." I reminded him we'd planned for it, that we'd get through it. But lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something close to grief. Grief for the wedding I'd imagined without fear. Grief for the version of family unity that never really existed. Grief for Kevin, who was losing his sister at the same moment he was gaining a wife. And for the first time since the proposal, I wondered, just for a moment, if all this pain was worth one day. The morning would decide. The morning of the wedding was calm. Not the fake calm of denial, but the kind that settles in after you've exhausted every fear you have left. Like my body had finally accepted that whatever happened next, I would survive it. My bridesmaids and I got ready at a hotel near the vineyard. Sunlight streamed through the windows, soft and warm. Someone played music quietly. Someone else laughed too loud at nothing. For a few hours, Rachel didn't exist. When we arrived at the vineyard around 2 in the afternoon, everything looked exactly the way we'd imagined. Rows of white chairs, flowers arching overhead, green stretching endlessly behind them. The air smelled like summer and cut grass and possibility. Guests started arriving at 3:30. Kevin's parents came early. His mom hugged me tightly. "She hasn't shown up," she whispered. "Everything's okay." The ceremony started on time. Our friends stood between us, voice steady. Kevin's grandmother sat in the front row, smiling. My parents were beside her. As I spoke my vows, something unexpected happened. The fear fell away. I looked at Kevin, really looked at him, and saw the man who had stood up for me when it mattered. The man who chose clarity over comfort. The man who refused to let someone else rewrite his life. That was the moment I knew. No matter what Rachel did next, she had already lost. The ceremony ended in applause. We walked back down the aisle together, breathless and laughing. And for the first time in months, my chest felt light. Then security stopped Rachel at the entrance during cocktail hour. She demanded to be let in, claimed she deserved to see her brother get married. They refused. She drove off. Kevin didn't let it ruin the night. He danced. He laughed. He held my hand like he wasn't afraid of losing anything anymore. Later, during the reception, Kevin stepped outside to call her. When he came back, his eyes were tired, but resolved. "She cried," he said. Said she just wanted to see me get married. "And?" I asked. I told her she knew exactly why she couldn't. That was it. That was the turning point. Not because Rachel changed, but because Kevin did. He stopped trying to earn permission to live his own life. And in doing so, he chose peace. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves, quiet at first, then undeniable. We left for our honeymoon the next morning. A coastal town 5 hours away, ocean air, space to breathe. Kevin told his parents we'd be unreachable except for emergencies. For the first few days, it worked. We slept late, walked barefoot on the beach. ate meals without checking our phones. For the first time in months, the future didn't feel like something we had to defend. Then Dylan called. Kevin almost didn't answer. He stared at the screen like it might bite him. "I think you should hear this," Dylan said. Rachel had been posting long statuses about feeling excluded from family events, about siblings drifting apart, about the pain of watching people you love change. She didn't name us. She didn't have to. She mentioned struggling with attending weddings that didn't honor God, talked about modern couples prioritizing personal desires over tradition. People commented, offered sympathy. Rachel replied to each one, adding detail. Kevin's mom called her and asked her to take the post down. Rachel refused. "I'm allowed to share my feelings," she said. Kevin didn't respond publicly. He didn't defend himself online. He didn't correct the record in comment sections. He did something else. He sent Rachel one message. He told her he needed space, that her behavior had crossed too many lines, that he wouldn't be in contact for the foreseeable future, that she was not to contact me ever. She replied that he'd regret it, that I had driven a wedge between them. Back home, the ripple effect continued. Family members reached out, not with accusations, but confusion. Once they heard the full story, many quietly distanced themselves from Rachel. Some told Kevin directly, "This isn't okay." Her private Facebook group, Support for Traditional Family Values, became the final straw. It was thinly veiled. Articles about secular weddings, divorce statistics, photos from church ceremonies. Kevin's mom told her to delete it. Rachel argued, claimed it wasn't about us. Everyone knew better. She deleted the group, but the damage was done. Trust eroded. Sympathy thinned. The narrative she tried to control started slipping out of her hands. And through all of it, Kevin stayed quiet. He didn't retaliate. He didn't escalate. He just stepped away. And in doing so, the consequences landed exactly where they belonged. It's been almost 2 months since the wedding. Life has settled into something softer now. Mornings that don't start with tension. Evenings where Kevin laughs without that shadow behind his eyes. We're learning each other in this new way, husband and wife, not because of the ceremony, but because of everything that came after it. Rachel did eventually send Kevin an email. It was different this time. She admitted, finally, that she had been afraid of losing him, that she'd projected that fear onto me, that she'd tried to control a situation she didn't understand how to accept. She said she'd started seeing a counselor, that she was trying to change. Kevin read the email slowly. Then he closed his laptop. "I'm not ready," he said. And that was okay, because healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means refusing to let it keep writing the future. Kevin told her he appreciated the apology, but needed time. That rebuilding trust would take more than words. That boundaries were not punishments, they were protections. Rachel said she understood. Whether she truly does remains to be seen. What I've learned through all of this is something no one tells you before weddings, before marriage, before choosing a life with someone else. Some people don't fear losing you. They fear losing control over you. And when control slips, they don't always let go gracefully. They rewrite stories, recruit allies, weaponize tradition, dress manipulation up as concern. But truth has a way of resurfacing, quietly, steadily. Kevin didn't lose his family. He discovered who respected his choices and who only respected him when he complied. And I didn't steal anyone's brother. I stood beside a man who chose his own life. That's the difference. If you're planning a wedding, building a partnership, or standing at the edge of a boundary that feels terrifying to enforce, know this. Love that survives pressure doesn't come from appeasement. It comes from alignment. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone be upset so you can finally be at peace.